Danny Neville's kind, compassionate voice just draws you right in from the beginning of our conversation. And today we're talking about how he and his husband Matthew met, how they decided upon the pathway to parenthood that they chose. And we also spend some time talking about the book series that Danny's created and is slowly coming out, with the first one launching in April 2026. And they're geared towards young readers. And the protagonist happens to have two dads and was conceived using egg donation and surrogacy. It's all beautiful. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. I am really excited to be speaking to fellow Canadian today, Danny Neville. Welcome, Danny. You wear many hats, not the least of which is father, but please tell everyone who you are and about the members of your family.
Hi, Sam. It's lovely to be here. My name is Danny Neville. I am a teacher. I am an author. I am a father. I am a husband. I'm a son. I'm a friend. So I have lots and lots of hats that I'm wearing these days. I'm married to a wonderful man, Matthew. We've been together for almost 12 years this summer. And we have two beautiful, wonderful daughters, both born through egg donation and surrogacy, and they are 4 and 6 years old at the moment.
And keep you on your toes.
Every single day.
In the best possible way.
And yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Um, how did you and Matthew meet?
We met in Toronto. So I taught overseas for a long time. So I was away from Canada for a number of years. On my re-entry back into Canada, I moved to Toronto, and a friend of mine encouraged me to try out a gay water polo team. So we played with the Toronto Triggerfish water polo. When I started, Matthew was the president of the club, and we played together for about a year, year and a half. And then I left again for a short stint, but obviously I ended up back in Canada.
So you said when you came back from being away the first time you came back and went to Toronto, did you grow up in Ottawa or where you are
I
now?
grew
Or
up I grew up near Ottawa, a little town in Eastern Ontario, and Toronto was kind of home away from home while those years when I was away. So when I moved back, I knew I wanted to be in the big city, and a lot of my friends from university days had ended up there, and
right,
joining there's a lot of gay sport teams around these days, especially in a big city like Toronto,
right.
and it's a wonderful way to meet people and get active, and I had a really really wonderful experience with that team.
Did you play water polo beforehand? Because I feel like that's kind of
No.
like, oh, random questions for 1,000, but how do you end up on a water polo team?
Yeah, no, I was a swimmer for a long time. I was a
Okay.
lifeguard.
Okay.
That's about as far as I knew anything about water polo. People think it's volleyball in the water, but it's very intense sport. So I quickly learned that. We ended up going to one of the gay games, the Out Games tournaments in Copenhagen. I think that was in 2009,
Wow.
which was such an amazing experience. You really felt like an Olympian going over, and they had, it was part of their Pride event. So we were in the Pride parade.
Oh,
We were
wow.
playing against teams from all over the place, and there were multiple sports going on at the same time. So it was really, really very special experience. I'm really glad I got the opportunity to go.
That's amazing. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? And you can only do so much in your life, but I had no idea of these out games, and I think that that's such a cool thing. Now, why aren't they televised? I'd
Yeah,
watch that.
exactly. Well, I am not an Olympian by any stretch of the means. So it's participatory. It's not you don't have to be a very high level player in order to go, although we did have some very high level teams playing. But yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity.
Excellent. And then you meet Matthew and you have the opportunity to kind of build a relationship, doing something that you're enjoying doing together. And then you
Yeah.
said you took off again? And he was like, hello, was
Yeah.
it something I said?
Yeah, I came back and I was trying to be, to start teaching in Toronto, but at the time there was a lot of teacher shortages, or not teacher shortages, shortages.
Right.
So my former principal called from Rio de Janeiro and said, "We have a grade 3 position here that has suddenly become available if you want it." And it's very hard to pass up a job in Rio, the most
Right.
beautiful city in the world.
Yeah.
So I hightailed it down to South America again. And about a year and a half later, I ended up back in Toronto with Matthew.
Excellent. So do you speak Portuguese as well?
I picked up a little bit as
Right.
as I traveled, but not very much, no.
Oh. And I mean, that's more curiosity than anything else, because I think it's always neat when we can speak to our children in a language that is, I mean, not spoken by everybody else around us. I just kind of think that
Yes,
that's
for
cool.
sure.
So I was wondering if that was something that you added to it. So you and Matthew have been together essentially since around the time that you came back from the first trip or the second trip?
From the second, so I moved back to Toronto. I went to Brazil, and then I went to Belgium for a year and did another round of teaching. It's international school, so I was,
Yep.
teaching in English, typical curriculum.
Yep.
And then I knew when I was in Belgium that we needed to be together, and it was either he moves to Europe or I move home to Canada, and it's much easier to return to your own country
Sure.
than it is to do all the paperwork and try to find a job and that kind of stuff. So I was very happy in Toronto, and we moved in together right away, and were married 2 years after that in 2014.
So how long after that did the conversation about let's start trying to start a family happen? Or had that already long been established that you were doing that?
I can't remember when we actually had the conversation, but it was always kind of obvious in our relationship that it was somewhere where we were both interested in going. I
Right.
think I was always more interested in pursuing a surrogacy a journey,
Right.
and he was always thinking, if he had kids, that adoption was the one and only kind of option. For us, growing up in the 80s and 90s, kids wasn't really something that we thought was going to be possible for us, and
Right.
that was something that I grieved a lot in my coming out process and trying to figure out who I was. I always knew that I was a father, or I was meant to be a father, and I'm glad I am.
Yeah. I I think that that's I think that that's actually you've raised a very important piece because it is a conversation that many of us have with ourselves when we come out to ourselves before we've even opened our mouths and said the words out loud. Since our childhood, people have told us we'll be parents someday, you'll know when you're a parent and everything else. So we picture, many of us, not all of us, many of us picture ourselves in the role of parent. And then we come out to ourselves. And I can only imagine, because I do have a uterus, I can only imagine that for someone who does not have the uterus to carry a child, that must feel that much more overwhelming because you wonder how on earth can I make this dream a reality? And it's hard enough if you have a uterus, but you don't care to partner with someone who has a phallus, then how do you go about doing
Oh
this?
yeah.
But then when you don't even have the ability to carry yourself, that's huge. And I don't think we give enough credit to people because we don't talk about the grieving and the mourning that you have to be able to go through even when life presents itself that you do come out the other side and you do get to become a parent. There is still that emotional turmoil, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's dark waters for a while to process that all. And for me there was a family piece too. I knew my parents wanted to nothing more than to be grandparents.
Right.
I have one brother who's also gay, and so at that when we both, figured out who each other were, we were, there was another grieving process for my family too. I knew that
Right.
was going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got through to the other side, and here we are.
So how did you I mean, you were saying you were heavy on the surrogacy side, he was heavy on the adoption side. Did you rock, paper, scissors? How did you how did you come to the decision to do things the way that you ended up doing it?
Well, we ended up at Daddy's and Papa's at the course through the Sherburne Health Clinic. At that point, we were pretty decided, I guess. So I don't really know how we decided between the two. But while we were in that course, it seemed like the surrogacy side was going to be easier.
Okay.
There's a lot of obstacles in terms of, the adoption process,
Hmm.
and there's also a lot of obstacles in the surrogacy egg donation process. But it seemed like the one that was going to fit for us a little bit better. So we decided to go that way. But that course, as it existed then, I'm not sure if I think it still exists.
I do do some facilitation for some classes through Sherborne, and they do try to offer information nights like that. It's
Hmm.
harder and harder to do because
Yeah.
people's time is just so sacred, and so sometimes you
Hmm.
find somebody to facilitate, and other times not so much. But
Yeah.
yeah, but those kinds of classes are exactly where you get to go and ask the questions. And if you
Yep.
don't ask the question, then maybe somebody else in the room will ask the question, and you're like, "Oh yeah,
Totally.
no, I was thinking that, but I
Yep.
forgot." So,
Or I
yeah.
wasn't thinking that at all. I never even thought of that path. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, there's all these options that
Yes.
are presented. And yeah,
Yeah.
it was fantastic. And that was, I think that was 2018. So we were in person. It was
Yeah.
virtual, wasn't happening really yet.
Yeah.
And meeting other people who were also on the same path was really special, to meet
Yeah.
other men in that class. Was all people who
Sure.
identified as male, and we were kind of going through similar processes. So it was
Excellent.
good.
So you decided you were going to do egg donation and surrogacy. Now you have to decide where you're going to do it. Did you go
Yes.
Canadian? Did you go international?
We stayed here in Canada for everything.
Okay.
I had one previous experience in a family building scenario with a female friend a number of years before. And we were going to co-parent, and it didn't end up happening, but we did have an egg retrieval. We had one viable embryo. There was a transplant, and it was unsuccessful. That
Right.
was a number of years before when I was single.
Hmm.
And then Matthew and I tried out a similar type of journey with a female friend, and that one didn't pan out either. But you try all these different things in order
Sure.
to become a parent and figure out what's going to happen. So because of those two experiences, we had a little bit of knowledge in terms of the fertility clinics that were out there and those kinds of resources. Um, Google was a big help, just finding like where do we go for
Yeah.
the agencies. And then the Daddies and Papas class gave us a lot of the resources that we ended up using. So I suppose the first thing we did was the egg donation component. We went with egg helpers,
Oh, yeah.
and just because that was one that was out there, and we decided on it, and we got this big long list of potential
Yes.
potential egg donors. I was listening to a previous episode of your podcast and talking about like how do you choose the donors.
Yes.
It can be a really daunting process,
Of
and
course.
there's a lot of information that you want to take into consideration. For us, we just decided to go with our gut a little bit, so it didn't take us an incredibly long time.
Right.
I think in the database there's a few hundred people, and then we did a very general filter based on our own identities kind of thing, and then we just poured a glass of wine and went through like profiles independently of one another. So, I sat with my
Okay.
laptop and he sat with his laptop. And in the end, we came up with our kind of the profiles that worked, and one was common between the two of us.
There you go.
So it worked, and we just said, okay, our decision is made. It fit, it worked. We reached out to her through the agency, and she decided that we were a good match as well.
Excellent.
And the rest is history. So yeah, that's how we got that far.
And did you get a chance to ever meet your egg donor or have any kind of a relationship with them, or was that everything kind of kept at arm's length? And is that an option for your children later on to connect with your egg donor?
We have never met, but it is an option once they turn 18 if they wanted to reach out. So we have a couple of photographs and we have the basics of the profile,
Right.
hair color, eye color, that kind of, any really significant medical type of history. But we no, we haven't met her.
Okay. Excellent.
So
So you make your decision for an egg donor, and now you have to decide, well, first of all, are you splitting the eggs 50-50 and then just put in the best egg, don't tell me kind of thing? Or
we did 50-50. We each ended up with something like five or six
okay,
viable embryos, so it was
excellent.
it was excellent. And then right up until this point, so I'm going to skip forward just a bit because we
Yeah.
we matched with a surrogate. We get close to the transfer date, and then we kind of are like looking at each other like, well, whose
Yeah.
embryo are we going to
Yeah.
use? We had avoided that part of the conversation, which is probably not the smartest thing to do. But in the end, one day Matt looked at me and he said, "It has to be you. It has to be yours." I think that a lot of that was because he has three nieces.
Okay.
He has a sibling and three nieces, and so his parents have grandchildren, and mine don't.
Right.
So it was one of those things where, I didn't think I could love him anymore, but it was a
Yep.
very special kind of moment. So that's how we chose that part. I'm going to back up now to the actual surrogacy piece.
Yeah. So you found a surrogate. Did you source that out on your own, or did you go through a surrogacy agency like New Hope or something like that?
This was so for our first journey, we went through surrogacy in Canada online.
Right.
We had a great experience. We were with a second agency kind of at the same time, and it didn't feel as good. There was a lot
Right.
less communication, and you felt kind of after you paid into it, you felt sort of dropped for a little while.
Right.
Or sorry, I did.
Yeah. Yes.
Everyone's
Fair.
experiences are very different. But with surrogacy in Canada online, we had a great experience.
Mhm.
Um, we matched pretty quickly. That was back in 2018. I think summer, early fall, we joined. We had an initial like interest from an individual, and we deliberated over the weekend. So this woman I think she lived in BC, and we thought like, how does this work with that
Yes.
distance? That was on a Friday, and we responded on Monday. And by the time we thought it all through and said yes, she had matched with somebody else.
Right.
So I have just a couple of pieces of advice for people out there. And number one is don't hesitate
Right.
when the
Because you'll
right
make
thing
the
is
logistics
presenting
work.
yourself. Yes, yes, yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
It will happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then after that, we met a woman from our immediate area, so it wasn't too
Nice.
long of a drive.
Yeah.
The first thing we did was she invited us to her house, and we met her partner and her kids, and just hung out for an afternoon. And it was like a perfect match. Right after that, we both said I do. We both said yes. So that
Excellent.
was,
No,
yeah, and that was a great experience.
and for those who, sort of think about fate and things happening for a reason, I mean, perhaps that's part of the reason why. As much
Hmm.
as I know a couple who is actually in the process right now of coming to Canada from Australia, because that's where their surrogate happens to be, and you think, okay, yeah, you're wondering from Ontario to BC, but at the same time, when it's all new to you, it all feels overwhelming. You're thinking, I want to be as involved in this process as I can possibly be. How can I do that from another province that's thousands of
Yeah,
kilometers away?
yeah, yeah. And the perspective of the surrogate too is a really important factor in all of that too. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't we didn't end up talking with the individual from BC, but I know the surrogate we ended up matching with, it was important for her to have closer contact with us, and she was anticipating a pregnancy and wanting to have that proximity.
Hmm.
It's not something that everybody wants. In fact, I know there are surrogates out there that prefer a longer physical distance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's all depends on, it's this fine balance, and there's a lot of chemistry, and there's a lot of intuition and gut feelings, and that
Mm.
go along with the science and the agencies and
Yeah.
the, legal stuff. But there's a lot of your own soul that goes into this stuff too.
Without question. For sure there is. So were you still in the GTA at the time or had you
Yeah.
moved? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were still in Toronto. We both of our kids were born while we were living
Well, you
in
were still in
Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah.
So you match with your egg donor, you match with your surrogate, you transfer clearly one of your embryos.
Yeah.
How many times did you have to try before you were successful?
We transferred once.
And there you go.
Yeah, we have a very like, I don't know. I mean, everybody has their own steps to get to this point.
Sure.
And by this point I was, I think I was 42 when my oldest was born. So, it didn't happen early in our lives, and there was a lot of stuff that happened beforehand to get us to that point. But we did have a really lucky experience. Our first surrogate got pregnant on the first transfer, and then our second surrogate got pregnant on the first transfer.
Nice.
So yeah, that was wonderful. I know it's different for everybody, and I've
Sure.
heard lots of stories in both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Um, but that was our experience.
So you used a different surrogate the second time round?
Yeah, so for the second time, one of my best friend from university and his partner had a child through surrogacy a couple of years before us, and they had met kind of through a friend of a friend on a Facebook post. They didn't go through an agency, and so my friend and his partner weren't having any more children, and their surrogate was excited to do it again.
Okay.
And so I kind of, once I realized that my friend wasn't doing it and she was interested, and we kind of just said, well, if you're interested, I mean, we are also interested. And it was another wonderful, lovely, amazing experience.
Yeah,
That one was complicated only by COVID. And so
of
our
course.
first daughter was born right before. So in terms of the medical world and going to appointments and stuff, we could do it.
Yeah,
For the second journey, we couldn't go to any
right.
appointments. And our second surrogate was wonderful. Like she just, you know, everything rolled. She just rolled with it all, and she would send us videos and pictures from appointments. And I remember on the day of the transfer, we were at our cottage, which was hours away. And before I had said, I'm going to drive back to Toronto. It was a 7-hour drive, and I'll be there and we can go out for coffee afterwards or something. And she said, don't you dare drive for 7 hours to stand on the sidewalk outside of, an office tower downtown Toronto. There's no, it was hard to not be there, but at the same time, I thought, you're right. I can't be there anyways.
Yeah.
So, COVID was really hard for all kinds of reasons, but we we didn't get to go to those appointments, but we had a happy, healthy little baby at the end. So,
And ultimately, that's what matters. I don't, and part of me wonders, is it harder if you had the experience the first time where you could participate in appointments and things like that, and then find out that you're not able to do that with the second one? Or is it easier to surrender a little bit with the second one because you have done it once before, so you have an idea of what's actually happening? You've seen it. Or is there perhaps a
yeah.
little bit of both in that?
I think it was, yeah, what you said, the second thing you said about it being a little easier, especially too, because it wasn't her first experience.
Right.
So both of us had been through a surrogacy journey independently of one another, but she knew what to expect. We knew what to expect.
Right.
And there was that sharing of information through video and phone calls and that kind of stuff. So I knew what she was talking about when she's going in for a transfer. I can picture the room. It was the same clinic. We were with
Okay.
Create
Yeah.
Clinic downtown, and another fantastic experience with that clinic. And yeah. So I think the knowing what was happening very much helped.
For sure. It's funny when you said standing outside an office tower, the only place that came to my mind was Create. So I just assumed.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, there are lots of clinics downtown Toronto, but
Yeah.
Create's what came to my mind. That's so funny. I just
Yeah.
knew. I just know these
Yeah.
things, I guess. That's funny. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know you want to start a family, but you're really not sure where to start, what questions to ask, who is your best person to connect with. Well, I would say that the best person to connect with is Sam from Baby Ready. We have connections and resources, answers to questions, and we have been helping support families for over 25 years. So when you are looking to start the process of creating the family of your dreams, look no further than Baby Ready. You can learn more about the services we offer and the places you can meet us in person at www.babyready.info. Were both of the pregnancies and births pretty straightforward?
Not too bad. In their first pregnancy, there was a little, I'm not going to remember all the medical kinds of things. There was a
That's
little concern at like, I want to say around 30 weeks,
mhm.
but it was fine in the end. Um, our first daughter was a little bit early. Our surrogate was induced maybe a week or two early.
Right.
The birth was hard. It was very hard on our surrogate,
Oh,
obviously.
okay.
But for me, it was just so agonizing to be, she was induced in the morning, and I think she was born 24 hours later. Like it was a long time that we were in the hospital. We didn't stay in the hospital the entire time when she first was induced. We left and walked around the mall and stuff, and then came
Yeah.
back. But it was hard to watch, and I just
Yeah.
felt there was all these emotions going on. There was guilt at, what this woman is going through for us.
Yes.
I can't even imagine, even though I'm in the room, I can't even imagine what she's going through.
Mhm.
And there was so much joy and there was fear and excitement and like everything was so heightened in that
Yeah.
space. Um, yeah, I'm just so grateful to
Yeah.
our surrogate and everybody that supported the journey to both surrogates and everyone who supported the journey. So
Were you able to be in the hospital for the birth of your second, given that it was COVID?
Funny, we missed the birth by 5 minutes.
Oh,
It was a
okay.
longer drive and it was a very quick uh, labor. So on the drive there, I think our surrogate was in the hospital for about 10 to 15 minutes before the baby was born.
Oh,
So it was very quick.
yes.
She had called us at like 2 in the morning and said, don't race here, but like I'm going now.
Yeah.
So by the time we arrived at whatever 4 o'clock in the morning, there was a baby. Um,
There you go.
and it was the first week that both parents were allowed to be in the hospital after COVID. So this was March of 2022.
Yeah.
The week before, even if and our daughter was in the NICU for a couple of days, nothing major, but um, the week before, parents had to tag out at reception in the hospital. They wouldn't let even both parents go up and be together
Oh,
for a
okay.
minute. You would be with your baby in the NICU. You would have to go down and sign out, and the other parent could come in and go up. So we were really
Wow.
fortunate to be on the other side of that. It was still very COVID times. It was still like masks everywhere and
Sure.
lots of caution, but at least we could be in the hospital.
Well, less guilt if you're arriving 5 minutes after the baby arrives,
Yeah.
then you don't have to worry. You're not seeing your surrogate so much uncomfortable. So you're like, yeah, okay, this is the easier way to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
But for the most part, both births fairly straightforward. Babies were
Hmm.
perfectly okay, and
Yeah.
you got to go home and figure out how
Yeah.
to then be parents to these children as they arrived.
Exactly. Yeah. Still figuring that one out, but
Right. Let me know if you figure it out. I've got a 28 and 25-year-old, and I'm still, learning all the time, and a 20-year-old stepchild. So I don't know if you ever really know, right? Because
yeah,
the world
I don't
changes
think
so
so.
much too as they're growing
Hmm.
up. I think, I even think between the two kids, sets of kids, mine are a little bit older than my stepdaughter, and they grew up without social media, and my stepdaughter
Hmm.
was in school during COVID and very much grew up with social media. Like the world's just so different. So parenting young kids and watching these changes all the time, I don't think we ever really fully learn
No.
how to do it.
We learn to pivot in the moment over and over and over
There
again.
you go. That's
Yeah.
very true. That's very true. And have we decided is that we're done? Two kids is
We're done.
even
I
numbers?
was on the, I was pushing to go again. But in the end, after our second daughter came and it gets that much busier, and
Sure.
we were just so thrilled and happy, and we have this perfect little family. And I think we're exceptionally lucky to have two births through surrogacy and egg donation.
Yes.
If it happens once, it's like a unicorn, and if it happens twice, I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're done.
I love that. I love that, which gives you time for your other activities that
That's
you are
true.
participating in. And these are exciting times for you right now.
Yes, very exciting. I'm about a week away from the launch of my first children's book. So at the summer after our first daughter was born, was the first summer of COVID. Everybody had lots of time, and I started writing. I'd been dabbling for a number of years. I'm a primary educator. I've been a teacher for a long, long time, and I had recently moved into the library. So I was a teacher librarian at my previous school and got a lot of the more behind the scenes in terms of books and where they come from. So I dabbled with a picture book that would tell a story about a, a child like my own, who was born through surrogacy and egg donation. That was the story I really wanted to tell.
Hmm.
At about 1,500 words into the story, I knew it couldn't be a picture book anymore. So
Yes.
it is a early chapter book, meant for
Okay.
kind of grade 2 to 4-ish, ages sort of 6 to 9. That's kind of flexible. Yeah, so Little B, The Buzz About the Party comes out early April. By the
Love it.
time this comes out, it'll probably already be
It will
out there
be
in
on
the
the
world.
shelves.
Yeah.
And I love about what you're talking about in part is that it is for that next step up. It's not a baby book or like, it's not a board book. It's not an early storybook for children, a picture book or what have you. You're actually getting into this small book, this book for small people who are starting to learn to appreciate the longer, slightly more involved stories because they have the comprehension to kind of process that. And we don't see stories in that age range
Hmm.
that have the same kind of focus. You
Yeah.
see there's lots of my donor story books and things like that about adoption and how we make our families and everything else for when they're really little. So in their lives and their lived experiences, they are seeing themselves and their families represented from the beginning. And then you get out of those early picture books and you start reading chapter books or just slightly longer books that are somewhat more complex. And all of a sudden, we've gone back to cisgendered heterosexual stories, and it's like, but wait, like,
Yeah.
what happened? So I marvel at this and that you've taken that next step because it isn't something that's out there, and I think that it's a miss for so many authors.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's such an important age for me. I've been teaching kind of grade 2, 3, 4 has been my focus for most of my career, and that's the specific age that I'm writing for. But you're right, it's the bridge between picture books and middle grade novels.
Right.
These are books that kids will read by themselves. They're also books that parents will read to or with their children for sure,
Right.
but it's bigger text. There's a couple of pictures throughout, like
Yep.
maybe every fifth or sixth page. It's not a picture on every page. So it's a really important time for readers to get hooked, and series, this is a series, are really, really helpful for that because the kids will get hooked on the first one. And even if the educator, the librarian, the parent teaches it or reads it out loud to them, they can then pick up the second one and
Yeah.
follow the story a little bit more easily. So yeah, it's been a big, lots of fun project.
I guess I'm just thinking about the young children, I think about our kids who are in their 20s who never saw themselves represented in
Yes.
any of the books that they were reading in terms of how their family dynamics were laid out in the books. That, as I say, has changed for young kids. But and then you get to the middle schoolers, and there's a couple of middle school type books that I am aware of that either have queer protagonists or kids have same-sex parents or what have you, because kids are starting also at that age range to wonder about their own sexuality lots of times, as much as cis het parents don't want to believe that their kids are thinking that they are. Many of us have known since we were that age.
Yeah.
um, but I am just so excited about the fact that there is this series that you're putting together to honor and respect these kids whose families
Hmm.
are need to be described and presented to the mass population. I think
Yeah.
I'm excited for what opportunities
Thank you.
this brings.
Thank you.
Where can people find your book?
So people can find my book anywhere they wish to buy books. Hopefully, it's on bookstore shelves, but it's a traditionally published book by Annick Press,
Okay.
and so Indigo has it. Your local independent bookstore has it, and if they don't, they can easily order it. Um, yeah, your local public library should have it, and if they don't, you can request that they purchase a copy for their shelves.
Nice.
I do have to say the book came about, from all of the components of my life merging together in terms of educator and parent, and um, but the book wouldn't have come without my publisher too. The Annick Press is a really special children's publisher. They have this is how I got this book published. They have a mentorship program for historically underrepresented authors and stories.
Hmm.
And so they are really trying to push the stories that haven't been told out into the places where they need to be. And those books that I never saw as a child and
Hmm.
therefore, had a hard time understanding who I was,
Yes.
um, they're out there now. They're on shelves because of publishers like mine, and many of the other, publishers out there are doing similar, wonderful things about books that represent kids. But that is so, so, so important for a kid to see themselves in a book, and
Yeah.
that was initially my motivation. I saw a post of yours recently, and you talked about sharing your story versus sharing your kid's story, and
Yes.
I love the question of like, should I be sharing my kid's story or my story? And my book, my intent is that it's sharing a story
Yes.
about my kids and where they came from. And so they'll see themselves and their friends can see
Hmm.
that. But the stories that I've written are not stories that have happened to my family necessarily. They're still fiction.
Sure.
They just include kids born through egg donation and surrogacy. So
No.
yeah, both of those aspects are really important for me to, that my kids see themselves and other kids see themselves, but also that kids not from an LGBTQ plus environment or kids not born through surrogacy, egg donation, IVF have a glimpse into what that means.
Yeah. Well, because books are such a wonderful opportunity, not only for us to see ourselves depicted or families described, but also for us to learn about that which we don't yet know. And
Yeah.
so that's what you're providing is the learning opportunity for other people, because we can't expect that everybody's going to understand our way of life because they haven't lived our lives. And
Hmm.
and to be fair, a lot of them don't even know what questions to ask to better understand our lives. However, when we take this step, then we have the opportunity to kind of give
Yeah.
those teachable moments, right?
And all of us queer parents have experienced people asking us questions that sometimes can be uncomfortable to
Mhm.
hear or to answer. For the most part, for me, I know that those questions that have been asked to me directly are coming from a really great place of trying to understand and wanting to know. And they may sound a little bit intrusive, or they may not be something that I'm ready to answer, or feeling like I need to answer. But
Yes.
having this kind of material out there can help with that too, right? When a family's reading it together, everyone's learning, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's understanding that there's there's a way to say something without gendering a sentence. In the book,
Yes.
the character talks about how her coach refers to her mom, like, where's your mom? Why is your mom not coming to watch you play soccer? And the kid doesn't know how to answer that question in the
Right.
beginning. And that's a question that my kids have gotten before. And, you
Yeah.
know, so anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you said, it opens up the door to conversations all over the place.
Yeah. And at the same time, don't you just want to say, I mean, because the question that our kids get is, where's dad?
Yeah.
And it's let's start with it's none of your business, but from there I can also choose to teach you what's actually happening. But it's hard not to just get your back up sometimes. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
this subtle way of being able to say, this is the question that this protagonist is being asked. They don't know how to
Hmm.
answer it because they're not sure. But it is something don't our children teach us how to be comfortable in being out,
Yes.
right? Because we don't want our kids to ever think that we're embarrassed about our family
Hmm.
dynamics. So
Hmm.
when somebody says, "Where's your mom?" your instinct in front of your child is to say, doesn't have a mom, has another dad, because that child's
Hmm.
lucky enough to have two dads. Isn't that great? And but if it was just us by ourselves, you know, where's your wife? Oh, and you just kind of brush it off.
She's not
And
here right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, like you
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
answer, you talk in circles. But when our kids are there, we're like, no, they need to understand that I'm proud of our family, because we are,
Hmm.
but we
We
just
are.
don't want to always have to fight the same fight, right? It's so books give
Yeah.
us a chance to kind of. But I love that you referenced that post that I did, because somebody asked me, or somebody said to me recently, well, I'm going to tell my story, but my child's take on this may be very different when
Hmm.
if someone was to ask them their story. And I thought, how often do we as parents tell our child's story on their behalf without actually asking them, A, if I can
Yeah.
do that, and B, did I get it right? Because my
Yeah.
perspective is from a totally different angle, right?
Yeah. Well, when I started writing this book, the idea was to talk about Mother's Day and how a kid like mine would be included, excluded, feel about a Mother's Day
Yeah.
celebration at school. And I think for a while I felt sort of self-conscious about her not having a mom, right?
Hmm.
But I quickly got I guess I really developed because of her. I see my two kids playing mommy baby together.
Hmm.
They love this scenario. And someday they might be mothers too. Like I have this
Sure.
newfound, sounds silly at this age in my age and stage of my life to have a newfound appreciation for Mother's Day and Father's Day. But the book isn't about veering away from Mother's Day or Father's Day, but about embracing it and having everybody include people and understanding that days like that, not just Mother's Day and Father's Day, but all kinds of special celebrations have baggage, right? We all
Yes.
have a different relationship with Mother's Day. Some people have never had a mom. Some people have lost their mom. Some people don't have a very nice mom. Some people have wonderful, wonderful moms. And
Yeah.
all of those stories matter on a
Yeah.
special day like that. And that's the message that I want the book to really get out there is that everyone can be included in a different way, and it's not a it's not a bad thing. It's a
No,
wonderful thing.
it is a wonderful thing. And
Yeah.
really, I believe this episode's going to drop right around Mother's Day. So there you have
Happy
it.
Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone. That just happens to be how the fates are aligning for us. But that's kind of interesting and kind of cool. I I know that you've got a website. I know that you've got social media. People need to know where to be able to find you. So I'm going to ask you that before I ask my final question. Tell people how they can find your book. I mean, you said they can find it everywhere. Can they also get it on your website? Is there a hyperlink through your social media? Tell us all the stuff.
I don't sell directly from the website, but you
Okay,
can definitely find information. So my website is dannyneville.com, and most of my social media presence is through Instagram at dnevillebooks.
perfect.
So you can find me in either of those spots.
Excellent. And I will make sure that I hyperlink those in the show notes so people can just click and follow and get the
Amazing.
answers that they have. And that way, when they're following you, they're going to know when all of the books come out because they'll get lots
Yes.
of
Yeah. The next
lots.
one is coming out at the end of the summer, and
Perfect. Wow.
that one has a drag queen. It's got a drag story time event, so it's I'm very excited about number
I
two.
bet. I love that. I super love that. That's so, and I mean, and if you follow Danny on Instagram, you get to see the cover art revealed if you go back in past stories.
Hmm.
So it's been fun watching this evolution as you're building your
Yes.
momentum to the launch. So that's pretty exciting.
My the illustrator Colleen McEwen, she just did a fantastic job on all the art, bringing it to life, and
Yes.
yeah, it's really fun.
It's beautiful. It truly is beautiful.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, you know, I ask the same question of everybody. You've had time to prepare. What is your very, very favorite part of parenting your beautiful girls?
I have had time to prepare and I have thought of many different things, but you know, it always comes back to watching them play together. Of course, they fight.
Sure.
Sometimes like cats and dogs, but they get along so well too. And just watching them learn about their environments and pick up a random pillow and all of a sudden they have a fort created in the entire living room. Watching them play together, that imaginative creative play is something really, really special. Sometimes I participate and sometimes I just want to sit back and just soak it all in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then we live in a
Yeah.
world where we can take pictures of it and record some of it so we
Oh,
remember it
I've got
too.
lots of video.
Right. I have no doubt. Right. Because we can. Thank goodness for
Yeah.
smartphones. Where were smartphones back when my kids were wee?
Yeah.
But I love
Yeah.
that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And seeing their connection, that's pretty amazing. I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, for sharing your story about your family creation pathway, but also telling us about this beautiful series of books that you've got coming out. Everybody's going to be clamoring for them, and I can't wait to be able to say, see, I told you you needed to read this book.
Thank you, Sam. I'm so glad to be here today. And yeah, it's been a special, special time.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable pasts and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.